And here we go. Welcome everyone to my 101 Tarot uh, class, Introduction to the Major Arcana. Um, this is all going to be basics. If you are a already a reader or intermediate to advanced in tarot, this will be a good refresher course. Touch up. This will be good for you as well to refresh. For those people who have are interested in getting into it, just got into it, or haven't touched a deck but curious about it, this is ideally the kind of course that we're really going to be focused on. Those type of people primarily, but all skill levels should be able to hopefully get at least a little something out of this. Tarot is a never-ending learning process. I've been doing it for almost 15 years now, and I will be the first to say that I am certainly, I don't know it all. And any tarot reader who claims that, I would really question their motivations, or at the very least, reevaluate their ego. So with all that said, for those, if you'd like to interact, feel free. If you already have an account here on Hitbox, or you want to log in through Facebook to Hitbox, you can interact through the chat room. I certainly will be taking questions and interacting with you. If you just want to view as a guest, certainly you're free to do that as well. But if you do have inquiries or want to pose any questions, certainly get an account going, and feel free to engage via the chat room. With all that said, we are, we're going to start off here. I got my PowerPoint presentation here. And let's see, I believe yes, that is the view I want. Perfect. Okay. So, let's get started. Okay, we're basically going to talk, the main points we're going to cover here is going to be the history of tarot. We're going to talk about techniques that I feel will make you successful if you choose you want to try to get into reading, or if you're already reading, some pointers I would suggest to you that you may not know. Then, of course, we're going to hit all 22 cards of the major arcana in the tarot deck, and then I'll take some Q&A throughout this course, but mainly at the end. If you have any lingering questions, I'll do that. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to try to stick to my 90 minutes. Not how successful we'll be. There's a lot to cover. I've not done a webinar tarot class, so it's obviously a little different than doing a class in person. So this is kind of new ground for me. So forgive me if there's a few hiccups along the way. But I'm going to try to stick to my 90 minutes. I figure that a pretty reasonable time frame. Temperamental says he has 3 decks. If you have the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, or any deck that is closely related to Rider-Waite-Smith, closely based on it, like the Illuminati deck, for example, that would be fine. If you have a deck that is pretty far away from the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, for example, the Cat People deck, the Fairy Tale deck, the Fairy deck, an Oracle deck, the Thoth deck, then you'll probably still get something out of this, but from a symbolism standpoint, they're so far off from the traditional symbolism that some of it won't click with you. So if you have a Rider-Waite-Smith deck, or you have something that's pretty fairly closely based on it, then any deck like that should be fine. Oh, sorry about Meowbot. That's when I'm doing my gaming. That's when this is my normal gaming stream. So Meowbot every 30 minutes or so is going to talk about talk about my gaming stream. So just ignore Meowbot. Yeah, and if you don't have something right away or something close to right away Smith, if you Google right away Smith and go to Google Images, you'll see all the cards we're going to talk about. And you know, so so that is an option. And also, if you want to take screenshots, you're more than welcome to. There's going to be a lot of information in this PowerPoint presentation. Not only, am I verbally going to be talking about it, but there's going to be a lot of information displayed. So if you want to take screenshots, again, you're more than welcome to. Um, are we AMS? Are we gaming after this? No, no, no. Today's all about learning AMS. So let's move on. So the history of tarot. Um, let's talk about the word. Depending on who you talk to, academic wise, the word tarot is either Middle Eastern or Italian based. It's not 100% really known um, of the etymology of the word. One theory relates the name Taro to the Taro River in northern Italy, which is near a town called Prama. Um, the tarot cards originally started off as a game and a piece of art that told story about life basically. So it was really a game slash artistic expression about life. It was not there was absolutely zero evidence to suggest it was used primarily and initially as a form of divination. That came quite later on. Um, it's believed that the concept and the game of the tarot cards came actually entered Europe in the late 14th centuries from Moloch, Egypt. That's the generally accepted understanding of where tarot came from. The first documented evidence of tarot in Europe came from Switzerland in the mid 1300s as a ban of it being the card game being banned. Um, and again, we believe it did start out most likely Italy, probably northern parts of Italy and around there. The first mention documented evidence suggesting it was started being used. It started migrating from a card game, a artistic expression to a form of divination. Was a book in the mid 1500s. However, the cards themselves did not have any specific definitive meanings. It was they were using them to as a form of divination, but the cards meant individual things to the individual readers. What card A meant to this reader could mean something very very different to another reader. So it was all personal opinion of what the cards meant. Uh, varied to reader to reader. There was no real standard symbolism or understanding of what the cards meant. Uh, but then about 150, 200 years after that, in the mid 1700s, the first book, The Square of Sevens, was published in and around Italy, and that talked about uh, uh, definitive meanings for the major arcana. When you look at the tarot cards are 78 decks, and just so we're all on the same page here. 22 of the cards are the major arcana, which is going to be our focus today. The remaining cards are what's called the minor arcana. The biggest difference is the major arcana, uh, from a divination standpoint, talk about major events, major people, things you generally don't have a whole lot, if any, control over. The minor arcana are about people and situations and issues that are mutable. They can go this way, they can go that way. There's a lot of room for change. Where the major, as I said, the major arcana is somewhat the opposite. They're big things, big impactful things. Situations that you don't have a tremendous amount of control over. And so that we're going to just focus on the major arcana because the minor arcana is in my 102 class, and that's a much more in-depth class that that follows this class. This gives you the basics of the major, and then my 102 class we get really into the minor arcana and go a little bit more in depth to the major. So but just so we understand what the difference between the minor and the major. Now, the major is what the history here is basically what we're talking about. The minor arcana is actually the cousin of today's playing cards. The minor arcana are four suits, pentacles or coins, staves, rods or wands, and swords. There it goes from ace to 10, and then four court cards per suit, unlike the today's poker playing cards, which are three. As you can see, there's a lot of similarity, and it's believed that the minor arcana and the today's playing cards are definitely cousins. There's definitely historically a relationship there, since they're so very close. Now, with all that said, they were originally two separate decks, and over the course of time, somewhere around the 1700s or so, the two decks kind of came together and it became one big deck, and ultimately became what we got today, the 78 cards of the tarot card. But originally and technically speaking, they are two decks, as being used as one. Now, with all that said, Carl Jung, where Freud, if you say he's the grandfather of modern psychology, Carl, you could argue, is the father of modern psychology. He was actually a big proponent of tarot cards. He said if you gave a person the 22 major arcana cards and asked them to look at the cards, and you pick the card that you feel most related to right now, that even if they never picked up a tarot card in their life and they weren't educated on the symbolism or what the cards mean, intuitively and subconsciously they would understand what tarot cards mean. And what they mean on a subconscious level, going back to the collective subconscious theory, where we are all on an ethereal level, all our intellect and our minds are all interconnected. And so while you may not know on a intellectual level what this particular the Empress card means, for example, on a subconscious level, we all understand the archetypes, and we all understand the symbolism on an intuitive level. And he said that every time he gave a person the 22 major arcana cards, they would always choose the card. They would hand him the card that he said that would always symbolically represent their current emotional mood. He said it would never fail to happen. So he was a big proponent. If you want to Google it, read about what he said about it. He's a big proponent of it on that level. More modern, Timothy Leary, another researcher, he said the tarot cards had on an archetypical level, if you spread out the cards from the Fool, which is we're going to talk about the card 0 all the way to the World card, you will see a progression of a person's physical and spiritual journey through life from birth to death. And as we talk about these cards, you will see that. And it is actually very, very true. Um, so, several established people in the realm of psychology have had some very positive things to say, about tarot and how it connects with people on an archetypical subconscious level. So let's move on. How to be successful. Now, these are my tips. You asked 20 tarot readers, how to be successful, and you probably will get pretty close to 20 answers. These are mine. Um, you know, take them, don't take them. But these are aspects that I found, and I truly feel that have made me as successful as I have been in this particular field. Um, Now, first thing, biggest thing, tarot cards, uh, in of themselves, absolutely have no ability for divination. It is a combination of the reader of intellectual understanding. Okay, this particular card on a symbolic level means this, this, and this. An intellectual level. But it is also intuitively speaking. The best way to describe doing a tarot reading is a jigsaw puzzle. You have multiple pieces, and it is your job to understand how, when you pull, 3 cards, 9 cards, 12 cards, whatever tarot spread you're using, it is your job to understand not only what does this, there's a dozen different meanings for this card, what meaning applies to the person you're reading from, as well as um, as well as how does it relate and how does it click with the other cards. So it's really your job to, like I say, look at all these pieces of the puzzle, put them together, and bring a insightful, helpful bit of information about where the person's going. Now, the thing about tarot cards, reading about tarot cards, you got to understand. One of the biggest misconceptions is, oh, if you pull this card, then that's what's going to happen no matter what. That's not how tarot works. Tarot is all about the path you're on. If someone comes to me and says, I have concerns about my job, and I do a reading for them, and I say, okay, well, if you keep going keep going down the road you're going, this is going to happen. Now, if when they get up from the table and leave, if they say, you know what, I don't really like where he says I'm going to make some changes. I'm going to start applying for some other positions. I'm going to I'm going to ask for a transfer to another department, whatever. They've then fundamentally changed the path they're on. So that, where I said they're heading is no longer applies because they've changed the path. However, if they keep on doing, keep, make no real changes, then what I tell them is going to happen ultimately will come to pass. So tarot is only about telling the people where they're headed on the current path they're on. And if they don't like that path, or that doesn't really work for them, then it's up to them to make changes in their life to avoid that outcome. And that's ultimately how tarot works, and what tarot is all about. It is. Now there are some aspects that are written in stone, but generally speaking, if you don't like the outcome, then it's up to you to make changes to avoid that outcome. And that's really what tarot is all about. Um, Now, but getting back to what I was initially saying, it is using both the left and right sides of your brain, both your intuitive emotional side and your intellectual knowledge side. And it's a 50-50. And the best tarot readers, you know, do both. They work their intuitive ability as well as their knowledge and intellectual understanding of the symbolism and meanings of the cards, and bringing both of them together. And that makes basically the best the best tarot reader, rather, in my opinion. Uh, and that's what work and that has successfully worked for me for many years. Now, if you're just learning tarot, engage with the cards every day. Very, very important. One of the most common ways to do that is every morning when you get up, pull a random card, look at it, study it. Spend just 5 minutes either, before you go to bed, or if you have time in the morning to get up, and just, focus the card, look at the symbolism, think about what it means to you, think, what are the other associations with the card, numerological associations, astrology associations, all these kind of things, and over time that'll you'll work both the intuitive emotional side of your brain and the intellectual side of your brain. You need to interact with the cards every day, uh, especially when you're just learning. Very, very important. Um, Now, tarot, as we're going to learn, we're just going to brush upon some of these. Again, the 102 course, we get more in depth in some of this. This is just, we're just trying to break the ice right now. But tarot has links to astrological symbolism, the Kabbalah, ceremonial, or sometimes what's called high magic concepts, elemental concepts, as in earth, water, fire, uh, and air, and numerology. Now, do you need to be a master at all of these to be an excellent tarot reader? No. However, um, you gotta at least have a basic understanding of all these aspects. You don't need to be a Kabbalah master. You don't need to go to a Jewish monastery and take a vow of silence and study the Kabbalah for 10 years. Nor do you need to get involved with some pseudo secret ceremonial magic organization or group, but you need to at least have a basic understanding. And if you have a basic understanding of these things, then you will get so much more out of tarot. Especially, and this, again, you ask 10 different tarot readers this, you might get 10 different answers. But in my opinion, as long as you have a decent understanding of astrology and numerology, and astrology and elemental associations are fairly linked, as we're going to see shortly. So astrology and elemental concepts are kind of almost one and the same. Uh, and numerology, those are the big ones, especially astrology. Um, if you only have a reasonable understanding of that, you will not only get so much more understanding and depth of the tarot, um, and it'll bring so much more to your readings, because not only you say, okay, symbolically this card means this, but then you add another layer. It's like an onion. There's several layers. Then you add another layer. Well, this card symbolically means this, but also it's associated with, say, the Capricorn, astrologically. And and then you think about you add the elements of the Capricorn into that card. Let's say the card is representing a person. Okay, well, then this person most likely has some personality traits, or their actions are related to the Capricorn, which are this. And then Capricorn's an earth sign. And earth signs are generally have to do with this. And so, so each card can have many, many layers of understanding. Um, and fi- and Moving on, reverse meanings. A lot of people don't like reverse meanings. This is when you shuffle a deck and you pull a card. If you're reading it and the card comes out upside down, that's called reversed. Reversed isn't always bad, and doesn't always mean the opposite of the upright. As we're going to see shortly, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Uh, but uh, but some people, and this is getting back to my next points. Some cards do not have positive meanings, and that's okay. Um, these two aspects are kind of linked. Some people, they only want the happy rainbow readings. Unicorns and rainbows out of your ass, and they only want to tell you good stuff. And so they don't use reverse meanings. They use mental gymnastics to make a negative card, and try to really go out of their way to try to make it positive, because they only want to tell you what you want to hear, basically. And that kind of gets into the last point, ethics. That is wrong. Sometimes a person is fucking up, and it is your duty, if someone comes to you for help, and you do a reading and you see that have the pedal to the metal and are going off a cliff. It's your right to say, listen, this path you're on is not good. You need to make changes, or you are going to head off. You are going to go full speed ahead into a brick wall and crash and burn. And there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with giving someone, negative or non-positive news. There isn't. It's your duty. If there are plenty of readers out there who will just blow unicorns and rainbows up people's asses, because they feel, well, if I only tell them good stuff, they'll come back for another reading. Or even worse, the people who, oh, it's going to affect I know I don't like to be a negative person, so it's like, okay, if you don't want to be a negative person, don't be a fucking tarot reader. Let's can we just be honest here, folks? If you don't want to give bad news, then this is not a skill set or profession you should pursue, because there's going to be just as much good as negative. Now, now, can you tell them that in a tactful, diplomatic, mature way? Yes. I've never said, hey, you're really fucked up. That those words never come out of my mouth in a tarot reading. But you can say, well, sir, as much as I know you want this relationship to work out, I don't see it ending in a really positive way, and this is why. A, B, and C. And so you know, that's you know, that's really your job as a tarot reader. You gotta emotionally remove yourself from the situation, and you got to be a conduit of you know helping the person and saying, listen, you try to do your best not to put your own wishes or impressions on the reading or on the client, and just say, listen, this is where you're headed, and win, lose, or draw, and you got to tell them, you got to be straight up, and that is very, very important. um, you know also, not telling people just to hey, if I keep telling these people uh, good stuff will blow smoke up their ass, they're going to keep coming back for more reading. They can make more money. There are plenty of readers out there. I know readers like that. I worked in Salem, Massachusetts. There are some very good, very ethical readers, and there are some that will screw you over. There are some of these people are in charge of very well known stores, witch stores up in Salem, and they will screw you over. There's this one particular woman who owns a very well-known shop up in Salem, and she, right to my face, told she was doing a phone reading, and she's like, yeah, I just tell her, yeah, any day now he's coming back. If he doesn't, give me another call next week, and we'll have another reading, and we'll see what's going on. And she goes, I just keep stringing him. I just keep telling her that every week. I have her call me back every week, and she goes, yeah, she calls me every week, and we talk for a half hour, and I charge her, and yeah, I mean that is, I don't think I need to explain why ethically that is wrong. If you don't understand why that's wrong, then I don't think anything I say will matter at that point. So it's very important that your first and foremost reason for doing this should be to help people and try to guide people. And if you're good at it and you do it well, the money will come. You don't have to worry about the money. Money should. If your primary reason to get into this is to make a buck, then you are absolutely getting into this for the wrong reason. Because really, you are dealing with people's lives. You literally are. Well, let me just give you an example. I had a gentleman sit down. This is just one of many examples I can give you. I had a gentleman sit down. First words out of his mouth: I'm thinking of leaving my wife of 18 years. That's the kind of stuff that I've dealt with. So you are dealing with people's lives, and you gotta take this very, very seriously. And can't, because um, they take most of these people will take your advice seriously. So you got to be very, very careful about that. So moving on. So if there's no questions or anything that we've covered so far, we'll get to the next part of this webcast. Any questions? Hello, Gold Queen. Hello. All right. I guess we're good. Don't see the chat moving. So, Pravitz, are you going to talk about turning your own tuning your own to. Oh yeah, yeah. We'll talk about that as I wrap up profits. Absolutely. So let us get now talked about how elements and astrology. Now we're not going to get too in depth. We're going to talk a little bit about this, but as we talk about the cards. Uh, but this is really something you need to kind of understand to to just start to get the uh, associations. Now, this is something you should really understand. Is this is kind of a mix of I was talking about the elemental associations: earth, air, fire, and water, and astrology. Now, uh, the element of earth, which is associated with the signs Capricorn, Taurus, and Leo. Generally speaking, the general concepts associated with an Earth sign, stability, strength. However, they can be, as many people know, Capricorns and Tauruses, and to some degree Virgos can be very rigid, very unmoving, or stubborn, if you will. Um, they're also generally pretty calm under pressure. They're very hardworking. Uh, and they can be very patient and very sensual or sexual. However, as I mentioned, they can be very stubborn, jealous. They generally look short term, not long term at times, and they can be very brash or harsh to friends, family, and lovers. Um, now, moving on to the air signs. These are Libra, Aquarius, and Gemini. Um, uh, just like the element of air, they're always moving. They're you know, unlike Earth, you think about Earth, rocks, dirt, stable, grounded. Air, total opposite. You know, they're very quick to change their minds, very quick to make changes. Um, oh, thank you, Lady Nix. I appreciate the kind words. She says, very admirable that you don't mince words or try to take advantage of clients. Absolutely not. I have spoken over the years about not doing that many, many times. And I've gotten into several disputes with people in Salem when I lived there. Some very well-known people. I've been in more than my fair share of disputes. Love bunnies, welcome, welcome. But getting back to this air. So the very quick changes. Air personalities are usually pretty good mindset. Very smart and intellectual. They usually have very good communicative abilities and usually very friendly. They usually don't have very hard time making friends. However, uh, the Libra, Aquarius, and Geminis, they're very well known to be very emotionally disconnected. They can have a very hard time having deep emotional bonds. And that's why, and so they can come off or, leave the impression of being cold and superficial, insensitive. And because they don't have a whole lot of bond, they have a hard time creating strong, deep emotional bonds. They can also be impractical too with some of their decision making processes. Now, fire signs: Leo, Aries, Sagittarius. Um, now, the fire signs, about passion, just like fire. You know, um, they're very warm. They're very generous. They're nurturing. They have a lot of they can be uh, very strong and strong-willed and very passionate about what they believe in. They're usually very extroverted, a lot of charisma, and they can be, stand up for what they believe in, rebellious. Uh, however, on the flip side, they can have short fuses. They can be moody. They can be definitely uncontrollable, and they can have at times you know, they they can be very angry and lash out very quickly. On the flip side, though, they usually get over it pretty. They can generally get over it pretty quickly. Um, and water signs: Pisces, Scorpio, Cancer. These are usually water signs are very creative, and usually the most intuitive, um, have the most intuitive ability of all the astrological signs or elemental signs. As water, you think about water, um, represents healing, emotion, intuitive ability, nurturing. Water is a very pure element. It has very positive connotations. However, on the flip side, um, you know, they because you think about water. Water is, it's a non-stable element. You can pour water over anything, and it's just going to splash and go all over the place. And like that symbolizes they can be escapist, oversensitive, irrational. Um, so what water signs on can be very deep emotionally and deep, and very creative and very um, sympathetic and nurturing. But on the flip side, though, they can be overly so. And they have a heart, and if things get too tough emotionally, they'll tune out. Where the whole escapist thing comes from, and they can, not think intellectually, but think emotionally. And as we all know, people who think with their hearts and not their brain, they can be very irrational and over sentimental, and make the wrong choices because of that, because they're thinking with their heart and not their brain. And so, that's the kind of the downside of those water signs as well. So, as I said, we're not going to get too much into this, but just kind of a broad meaning, because we're going to see, as we talk about this, we're going to see, um, keep in mind what we're talking about here and the next chart as we start talking about the tarot proper, and you're going to see these each tarot card has an association with a astrology sign or a element or planet, and you're going to see how we talk about the symbology and what the card means. You're going to say, "Oh, that makes sense." Like some of these, uh, like for example, the Strength card is associated with the sun, which is a fire element. And you're going to say, oh, yeah, as we talk about the meanings of the sun card, you're going to go, yeah, that makes total sense. Why, I mean, so you're going to see, and again, this is another layer, like the onion I was talking about, this is another layer of understanding how to bring more depth to your readings. Not just, okay, well, symbolically, this card means that, so that's what it means. Well, yes, but you also got to put this the elemental understandings of it, and the astrology understandings of it as well. So now I was talking about the cards associations. Now here they are. We're not going to get too much into this. I'll let you guys, those people who want to take screenshots, feel free. Um, but you know as I was talking about, as we talk about these cards, I'd like you to kind of keep in mind what we just talked about and these associations. And again, you're going to see how um, symbolically the meanings are really associated with this. Yeah, we do own the Planet Prophets. Leos are pretty awesome. Not gonna lie. Not gonna lie. And here's the rest of them. So these 22 cards is what we're going to talk about today. And as I said, as we talk about them, I want you to, keep in mind these associations. And you're going to see there's a whole nother level of information you can gather from these cards by looking at this. AMS says the Libra justice thing is neat, especially considering I have a criminal justice degree. Yes, yes. Well, um, uh, yeah, right. Well, Libra. Well, also think about this. Libra. What is the symbolism astrologically of the Libra? Ignore all of those water type traits. I am not any of those things. I love you. Temperamental gaming. But AMS, the scales. That is what Libra. Now, if you think about it, think about all 12 astrology signs. What is the representation of all the astrology signs? Cancer, you got the goat. Pisces, you got fishes. Leo, you got lion. You know, uh, so on and so forth. However, you come to Libra, a pair of scales, and that kind of shows you on a symbolic level about where the Libras are emotionally. They're not traditionally, and so that's why Libra is associated with justice, because they're the ones that, that it's all about the brain, the head, the intellect aspect, not the heart. And exactly, Amos. Libra is all about not having extremes in their life. And as you say, I like balance in all things. That's a traditional, traditional and typical Libra um, aspect. So let's get to now. Let's get into um, the cards. The Fool, 0. Now, um, upright, the card means folly, extravagance, beginnings, journey, free spirit, youth, and new outlook. And reversed, carelessness, ignorance, apathy, fear of the unknown, being naive, and chaos. Now, there is some decks and some people do not have the Fool numbered at 0. They have it they have it elsewhere in the deck, depending on depending on your preference and the way you look at it from an esoteric point of view. But I take the more traditional. The Fool is 0. Now, why is the Fool 0, not 1? 0. If you think about 0, what is 0? What does 0 contain? 0 contains absolutely nothing. It's 0. It's a placeholder. And that's exactly what this card represents. It has no value, no meaning, no inherent baggage. And that is symbolically exactly what this card is all about. 0 is to indicate infinite possibilities and a fresh starting point. Now, if we look at the symbol, we see a young lad. Depending on the card you're looking at right now and the deck, but generally speaking, it's a young lad with looks like he's traveling. He's usually in pretty nice garments. He's holding a rose. He has a dog, nipping at his heels, jumping about by his feet, and he's just staring off into the beautiful horizon as he's just a step or two away from going off a cliff. Now, the Fool. Now, remember we were talking about if we placed all the cards from beginning to end, you would see a person's physical and spiritual life journey from beginning, from birth to death. So symbolically, the Fool represents a newborn, and that's exactly what this card really is about. Uh, it's a young kid. He has the whole world before him, and he's he's about he's on his journey, and he's just he's looking at the big picture. He's looking far in the distance, and he's not looking right what's in front of him, and he's just a step or two away from total disaster. Um, the card represents the best way to describe this card is from an economic term called the greater fool. The perfect fool. The definition of a perfect fool in an economic term is the guy who buys long and sells short. The guy who, when there's a hot potato, something very volatile economically, and everyone's trying to get rid of that economic hot potato. He's the one who grabs it and runs with it. It's a, it's the guy that all the other traders and economists look at him and go, oh my god, he's gonna he's either gonna lose it all or become a millionaire over this. It's a perfect blend of self-delusion and ego to think where he can succeed where others have failed. And that is what this card really is about. It's about, about new begin. It's a fine razor balance between uh, making a new journey and starting fresh and you know going on a whole new path, but on the flip side, also being short-sighted and naive and you know, being ignorant of the choices we're making. So, you know, depending on the context of the card, it can be a very positive thing, or it can be something that, you know, listen, you got to reel it in here, and you know, you got to see the forest from the trees. Lady Nick says, I believe it's just a starting point. Um, Willing to take a journey into the unknown. Kind of, yeah, it is. It is. It is. It is. Like I said, it is about the fool taking that journey. However, you know, it's as I said, it's a razor fine line between taking a leap of faith and you know, taking some risk and starting a new endeavor versus blindly, you know, walking off a cliff. And so you really, you know, so that card is very very interesting on that level. And if we go back, the Fool, air. And what did we talk about? Air, freedom book, quick to change. You know, and so you know, air, you know, air representing, um, you know, you know, the freedom and the carefreeness of, you know, starting, you know, going somewhere, doing something, but also, you know, but also, you know, quick to change and you know, being impractical and super and doing things for the wrong reasons. So it's a, you know, it's a mix. So the magician, the next card, the magician, or some cards, for example, if you're using the Illuminati deck, it is the alchemist. But they're all the same, depending on which deck. Sometimes they call them a little different, but it usually looks like a man. Um, in front of a altar or table. He has the four tools representing the four elements: uh, sword, air; pentacle, earth; wand, fire; and chalice or cup, water. Uh, and the the alchemist. This card, upright, talks about skill, diplomacy, physical illness, loss, self confidence, wisdom, or having a mentor, or needing a mentor. Reversed, it can talk about mental illness, physician, or again, some sort of physical issue, dis- deceit, disgrace, false knowledge, and neglecting talents. Um, Now, in the very traditional artwork of this, you see the magician, and he's pointing up and with one hand and pointing down. That is a very esoteric symbolism. It comes from the Greek of "as above, so below," which means things that affect us on an esoteric or spiritual level affect us also on the physical, mundane level, you know, and vice versa. Anything that happens in the physical world will affect us on a spiritual, esoteric level. It's all linked together. Um, so you know, and again, this is the second card. So so if the Fool was the baby with the potential to be a massive success or crash and burn failure, magician is the next stage. It's like a toddler, you know, learning his learning the tools of the world and coming into his own, you know, intellectually. You can look at it that way. There's a lot of alchemy symbolism in here, um, and basically it all translates to moment transformation. Um, Now the uh, also, if you look at this, um, the person in the artwork, the magician or the alchemist or what have you, um, his body is symbolizes the universe. And again, getting back to the concept that everything is interlinked. You know, we as people are essentially made of the same elements that a star is made out of. You know, we have literally stardust in us. Um, so you know, it's everything's interconnected. That's what this card is. Is about. It's about connections. Um, and so when you get this card, um, it's usually a very it's not an overly spiritual card. It's all about the usually about uh, how two things. Usually about the physical something going on in the physical plane, whether it's the person you know something about schooling, something about his profession, on a skill, whether he or she needs to be more tactful, you know, whether he or she, needs to find someone to help them along their endeavor, a mentor, it could be, something to their back back them up that they have knowledge and they have their skill, and it's reassuring them on that level. On the flip side, though, it's a lot again going keeping with the whole intellectual mental aspect. It could be about them being overly stressed, overly paranoid about things, them thinking they know more than they do about a situation, that kind of thing. Or people who have the ability to be successful, but they're not tapping into it because they're choosing to, uh, basically fight the universe, and this comes, fight what the universe is trying to, the universe is tossing them a bone, but they're trying to, they're not, picking up what the universe is putting down, basically. So that's that. Any questions so far? All right. The High Priestess. High Priestess, it's a lot of symbolism here. A lot of symbolism. Upright, the High Priestess talks about secrets, matters fully unrevealed, tenacity, mystery, science, and intuition. Reversed, it talks about passion, conceit, surface knowledge, physical and moral failure, silence, ignoring intuition, facts. Um, the High Priestess, if you look at this image of the High Priestess, it's very interesting. Usually, again, artwork varies deck to deck, but basically, it's about a woman in very regal robes in front of a temple with pillars on both sides of her. Um, and she's usually holding a scroll. In the traditional artwork, the scroll is partially hidden. Now, what does all this mean? First, the priestess, she is at the entrance of the Temple of Solomon. That is symbolically what the temple is. And as you can see, the pillars behind her, there's one black, one white, with a B and a J on it. Um, that comes from the Kabbalah. The B meaning Boza, and J Jackin, strength and established. And she's at the entrance to welcome you into the temple, symbolically meaning the entranceway to gaining wisdom. Now the pillars are black and white, as you can see, and this is talking about polar opposites and dualities. Um, basically finding that happy middle ground, and not going to extremes. Uh, it's also, and this is the first card where we start getting away from purely physical level kind of issues. We're starting to talk a little bit about spiritual now, and this card is all about, you know t- finding out who you are as a person inside, finding out about your strengths and your weaknesses, and spiritually where you're at, and it's about as much of an inward journey as it is an external journey. Um, Now, those that have the now you see the scroll in her hand is partially hidden, and this goes symbolically to um, the aspects of matters fully unrevealed. This card, you know, usually implies a person doesn't necessarily always have all the information they should have or need to have. That there's still some more to learn. This might be someone who is thinking of maybe quitting school and um, getting into their profession early. And if you got this card, I would strongly suggest they not do that because it probably won't work out for them. You know, uh, work out for them very well. Um, so and but this card is also I've also drawn this card with someone who says I'm not sure really what I should major in. You get this card. This is a great card. It's any kind of field in science, any kind of field where they need to be very tenacious, like an investigate, like police officer, police detect, something in law enforcement, some, working as an analyst for the Defense Department, you know, um, researcher, anything like that. The Empress. Now, the Empress. Uh, this is as you can see, this is a very feminine card. Um, and being a very feminine card, and associated with the with Venus. There's a lot. It's a very emotional card. Talks about the subconscious, enlightening and spiritual knowledge, um, fruitfulness, wisdom, uh, motherhood, sexuality, all the things you would associate with the planet Venus. Um, Reversed talks about matters coming to light and the truth being revealed. However, plans also unraveling. The person in question, or the person you're doing, or that they're inquiring about, being overbearing, stifling growth or creativity. Yes, the Empress is kind of the MILF. Yes. Um, now, Now, the Empress, as I said, is one of the ultimate cards about motherhood and those kind of symbolic associations. Um, she represents Venus or Aphrodite. Love, sex, lust, sensuality, those kind of things. Now, if you look at most of the art, these cards, they have 12 she has 12 stars above her head, um, and ultimately what these stars represent is, um, the best way to put it at, um, is about duality, and again the theme of balance. It's also a card about, some of the symbolism in here is about manifestation and creation. Again, the whole motherhood thing. What do mothers do? They create. They have babies. And so symbolically, that's what this card is also about as well. Now, the scepter in her hand symbolizes, like a scepter would in most cases, taking power, but in this context, taking control of her power. Um, and usually there is some wheat either in her hand or by her uh, chair in the artwork. And what does wheat represent? Well, um, wheat the wheat, like all foodstuffs, it needs to be worked to produce. And so what this card is kind of saying in that context, hey MSSG sounds hot. Um, right, Gold Queen, about harvest, and you need right grains and seeds, right, and you need to work the wheat for it to be plentiful. And so this is about a card where, with the right, uh, you know, with the right effort, your endeavors will be fruitful. You will get a good harvest. So, that's the Empress. The Emperor. Now, we had an Empress and we have an Emperor. Ooh, do you think they're linked? Yes, they are linked. I'm glad you thought of that. We're going to see right now, uh, as we're going to see, while the Empress was all about the emotional, the Emperor is mostly going to be about the physical. The card the card symbolizes stability, laws, protection, receiving aid, conviction, ambition, aggression, person, and power. Uh, on the flip side, reversed, it means compassion, benevolence, confusion of enemies, obstruction, immaturity, and fatherhood. So we had a card about motherhood. Now we have a card about fatherhood. Imagine that. So you can see, yes, indeed the Empress and the Emperor are two sides of the same coin. Uh, Now, now you see he's holding a wand, which is phallic in symbolism to again represent while the Empress had a lot of female symbolism. Uh, the wand here representing the masculine symbolism. And you can see the link between the empress because in the emperor he's either holding or somewhere on the card, depending again on the specific deck. There's usually an ankh near him or on him or holding it, and the ankh represents Venus, and again his link to the empress. Now, his stone throne, while it looks very uncomfortable, there's a whole reason for it. Stone throne usually looks squarish in dimensions, and that's totally intended. Uh, the throne represents the four elements, and meaning symbolically that which can be built. Again, going on to the whole physical aspect of the card. Again, if you look at the symbolic meanings that I mentioned at the very beginning, it's all there's some emotion, but generally it's all about affecting the physical present world. Exactly, Lady Nix. He is the epitome of male energy, absolutely. Just like the Empress is the same when it comes to the feminine. Now, the crossed handle that he's holding in one of his hands, again, depending on the particular artwork you're looking at, is a crux ansata, which is religious symbolism for life and the key to life. Again, talking about the physical world. So overall, the Emperor is a very positive card, generally speaking. However, again, context is everything, depending on the spread and the question, and you intuit and tapping into not only the intellect. We're really just focusing on the intellectual aspects of the cards. You got to use as I said, it's an equal mix of intuitive ability. But once you do that, you will see that um, it can also about mean someone who's overly aggressive, abusing his power. Someone who's trying too hard to beat his chest, overly masculine, if you will. So it can be positive, representing someone in power or talking, implying someone is it can either symbolize the person you're reading for or someone in that person's life who has authority, like a boss figure. But it could also mean an overbearing father. So again, context is everything, but just some examples of what this card can represent. The Hierophant, or in some decks called the Pope. Now, this is a very Catholic-esque card, symbolism-wise, but there's really a fair amount of esoteric as well. Um, the card. This now. Now we're starting again in some of the cards. Uh, yes, AMS indeed. We're going to get to that in a second. Um, the this card, we start. This is when the tarot card starts to slowly make the transition from the physical aspects, of one's existence in life to starting getting to a little bit more of the esoteric and the spiritual. Now, upright, the card talks about marriage, servitude, tradition, religion, institutions, outward wisdom, and knowledge. Reversed, blind devotion, overkindness, weakness, poor advice, and dogma. Now, this, just like the Empress and the Emperor were linked, the High Priestess and the Hierophant are linked. This is, they are two, just like I said before about the Emperor and Empress, the Hierophant and the High Priestess are the two sides of the same coin. Now, you gotta understand, one of the most important things about this card is, it, the meanings of the card are mostly figurative and symbolic. Not You can't take the symbolism. Generally speaking, you can't take it literally. It's all figurative. Now, the word Hierophant comes from Greek, revealer of the sacred. Now, one of the biggest things on this card is you're going to see two cross keys. Again, that is Christian symbolism. It's based on St. Peter, and it's the admission of religious belief and divine wisdom. Now, the triple cross that he's holding on his staff is actually a symbol of the Golden Dawn, meaning authority. The Golden Dawn actually are people who came up with one of the first workable tarot decks, and then Arthur Waite took that basic idea, reworked it, created his own tarot deck, and then we got the Rider-Waite-Smith deck that everyone basically uses today, and was the first public tarot deck. And so he incorporated some of the symbolism of the Golden Dawn, high magic group that he was a part of, into his cards, and basically it's talking about authority. And now, if you think about the church historically, what has the church been? Aside, not including the religious aspect or the spiritual aspect, but what has the church been? Throughout its history, it's been the center of education and knowledge. Especially during the Middle Ages. Pretty much aside from nobility, the only people who were really educated, reading and writing, were people in the church. Um, and so the card on that level is talking about, you know, uh, you know, uh, intellectual knowledge and wisdom, and it's a card about being a teacher. Now, again, depending on the context of the question and everything, this card could mean, something like, if he's wondering, I just don't know what profession I need to get into, something in the academia field or teaching field. If you get this card, that's definitely something that they should strongly consider. Um, Also, but if they're but if they're struggling with you know in school or struggling in their profession, this could mean that hey, they need to hit the books again. They need to get back. They need to maybe take some more classes or go back to school or something. Um, if this is a card about a relationship, then marriage certainly would be a very strong possibility. Um, you know, uh, However, on the flip side, it can also the card again, depending on the context and the question of the reading, it could talk about someone who's too rigid, who's stuck into their dogma, either spiritually or intellectually. That they're blinding themselves to new ideas, new ways of thinking, new ways of doing things, and because the church does represent dogma about this is the way it is and no other ways are valid, and you can take that kind of idea and concept and apply it to pretty much anywhere, to anyone. So yeah, and so the card can be very kind of dangerous in a way that that they're just stuck in their ways. They're stuck in their way, this particular way of thinking, and they're not opening their eyes to new ways of thinking and new information, and uh, you know, that they're so stuck. Uh, they're just muddled down in their traditions and their ways of doing things and the institutions that they're being oblivious to um, you know being oblivious to opening other doors in their life. Exactly, Golden Queen. She says, notice how he's a gatekeeper to pillars as well. Exactly. But in this context, though, he's not greeting you, unlike the high priestess. High priestess, she was outside of the temple to greet you, to bring you in. Here, you're already he's on the inside already, and you got to understand the symbolism difference between that. So, moving on, the lovers. Um, Not surprising. There's a lot of surface symbolism that's not a whole lot of hidden aspects about the lovers here. Um, I'm just pulling the card up here myself so I can see it. Talks about talks about love, friendship, beauty, sex, desire, romance, partnership, harmony. Reversed, union of the wrong for the wrong reasons, failure, unbalanced relationship, foolish ideas. While it does use a lot of fair, the whole Adam and Eve and other biblical aspects, most of the artwork, uh, well, it uses a biblical symbolism. It's not trying to talk about that specific type of spirituality. It's using that symbolism for a higher meaning. Now, if we see now, usually there is an angel above our proverbial Adam and Eve type lovers. Um, Now, we're going to see the same angel actually in other cards going forward. So let's kind of keep that in mind. Um, and at the core, though, however, if you really look at the card, there's a lot of duality, you know, in the card. The most obvious being the man and female, man and woman. Um, you know, it's while on the surface and most commonly, it is about partnerships and sex and love and you know you know two people together. On the flip side, again, the context reversed. It usually means very fundamental, uh, very difficult issues to resolve. Usually, if you get this card in a relationship reading reversed, um, more times than not, it usually signifies a relationship is past the point of no return. The people usually got together for the wrong reasons, or things happened in the relationship that damaged it to the point where it's almost unrepairable. Um, if it's not a relationship idea, if it's about work or family issues or something, um, then in that context it can talk about a family dynamic or a friendship dynamic that is very unbalanced, usually in the favor of the other person. For example, someone who if a family member, for example, keeps coming to your client, oh, I need money, can you help me out? I'm in a pinch. Can you give me some money? Can you give me some money? And the person never tries to pay him back, never tries to uh, never communicates or spend tries to engage with the person unless they need something, some sort of situation like that. So it's it's a simple but deep card. You know, at the same time. The Chariot. Now, the Chariot is it's quite a bit going on here. Um, as you see basically a man on a chariot with a black and white polar opposite horses. He doesn't look warlike per se. He's leaving, looks like a citadel or town or fortress. Um, and while he's not in a warlike stance, clearly he is ready for battle. Um, Prof, this is not the time to try to hook me up. You crack me up, my friend. Um, the so right off the bat, you can understand where some of the symbolism comes from. Space muffins, how are you, my friend? Uh, the Chariot, a war, victory with a cost, vengeance, willpower, getting assistance, ambition, momentum. On the flip side, reversed, pressure, loss of momentum, quarrel, litigation, defeat, refusing to change, refusing challenges in his life, trying to avoid difficult situations. So not really surprising. So there's really not a tremendous amount of surprising here about what all the symbolism means. Um, the chariot in a positive context, usually implies someone who, again, using their ambition and their momentum and their isn't afraid to break some eggs to make an omelet is really the best way to describe it. One who is trying to surpass the limits and expectations other people put on them, or maybe even perhaps limits or expectations they put on themselves. Now, the dual horses is interesting. One dark, one light, and this duality is talking about um, the white is representing higher glory, uh, and the higher aspects of the human mind and human being, and the black is about the lower expectations and and the animalistic actions and mindset of the human being. Um, Now this card is loosely based on Plato, where he described the soul as a charioteer. Now, symbolically, as I mentioned earlier, you see the man, he's leaving a town or a citadel or what have you, um, and this is symbolizing leaving, the person leaving their comfort zone. The man in the chariot, he's left the walled citadel, the walled town. He's left that safety, and he's going out into potentially the unknown, perhaps to go to war. And win, lose, or draw, he's heading into it. And so think about that symbolism when you if you ever get this card. And this card is really about a little, there's really not a lot of gray area, especially if you look at the definitions I listed, it's not a lot of gray area. Either it's about fighting the good fight and winning, or you know, losing. There's not a whole lot of gray area in this card, and so keep that in mind as well. This is a card of extremes. Lady Nix says, I always get confused about this card versus the Two of Cups. I'm not sure what you mean by that. You mean if you get them both in the same reading? I'm not sure what you mean by that. I don't want to get into the minor arcana very much, Lady Nix, because the people who are just getting into tarot, I don't want to confuse them. I'm trying to stick to the major arcana, but if you could kind of, I'll very quickly try to address that if you kind of clarify what you mean. Strength, the card of prophets and I, the Leo. Take care, Gold Queen. Thank you for stopping by. I'll be posting this on YouTube, so if you want to watch the rest. Strength. Yeah, I guess I totally blew the 90 minutes out of the water. I was trying to make this a 90-minute presentation. Looks like we're going to be close to 2 hours. Um, Associated with Leo, fire sign. So as such, you're going to have very similar traits: power, courage, success, kindness, compassion, libido, healing, embracing the lower self. On the flip side, reversed: weakness, discord, abuse of power, disgrace, cowardice, self-made obstacles, and opposition. Now, this, as you'll notice, if you look at the card, you see a young woman. She's not fighting the Leo. She's just she doesn't see. She's not a bodybuilder, obviously. Yet the lion isn't being aggressive, and the lion is letting her caress it, open its mouth. Um, and so, it's a card of strength, but not necessarily raw. Very rarely is it about a card of raw physical strength. There's other cards that represent that much better in the tarot deck than this card. This is about having mental fortitude, spiritual fortitude, intellectual fortitude, drive, ambition, sexual, uh, and sensual ambitions and successes. That kind of strength, the internal strength, not necessarily the outer strength. And the maiden in the card represents a higher self, while the lion represents a lower self. Um, Now, again, depending on the artwork, you probably see some other types of symbolism in here. Um, the other interesting thing about this, symbolically, you can think about this card as a Beauty and the Beast, and think about that kind of association symbolically, and that really would apply to this card. Now, the flowers in this infinity symbol are alchemy symbols that represent a male and female union. The Hermit. Now, the Hermit can be one of those cards that can be sometimes a little hard to really get a grip on what its meaning. Um, Upright, the card means insight, guidance, wisdom, reevaluation of a situation, sense of self, corruption, and treason. Reversed, concealment, unreason, caution, isolation, rejection, negative outlook of age. Um, Now, if you look at the Hermit, um, if the High Priestess was, and looking at how these cards kind of, there's cards that all link together. If you think about the High Priestess as the entity greeting you at the entrance of the temple and letting you into the wisdom. The hermit is who leads you to the high priestess and the temple. If you look at it in that context, it really helps you get your head around the hermit card. The card is ultimately about age and wisdom at its root. Now, if you look at the hermit in most artwork, is holding maybe a sheep crook, and that's all about helping others. Again, guiding people, leading people. What the hermit's doing. And this symbolically, the card is about leading the person in question out of the darkness with his lantern. Now, if you look in the lantern, almost all artwork, it will show the Star of David, basically. Upright triangle and a triangle pointing down, forming a star. Or the Star of David, if you want to look at it from Jewish symbolism. However, it isn't using the two triangles to represent the Jewish star specifically. It's actually, you got to look at it as two individual triangles, one pointing down, one pointing up, getting back to the as above, so below, or the union between both the spiritual and the physical. But yeah, so the hermit. If you get this card, you can again, depending on the question and the context, but basically it's about either seeking out wisdom that the person doesn't have at this point, or uh, or a reassurance that you have the knowledge and the wisdom and the insight you need to be successful in whatever the particular issue is at hand. Reversed, however, it's usually more or less the opposite. You're either being overly cautious because you have insecurities you need to address. You are literally being a hermit. You're isolating yourself and too much. You know, you need to get back out in the world. Or if a person's gone through a very traumatic event and you get this reversed, usually that means, okay, it's time to stop crying, pick yourself up, and get the fuck back on the horse. Ultimately, that's something about the horse. And if you do, the hermit will lead you. You will. The horse, the symbolic horse I'm talking about, the symbolic hermit. You'll be fine, but you gotta get back on the horse and lead yourself through this darkness to get back to where you need, back on track. Also, in some contexts, this card could be someone who's being down on themselves or someone else for ageism. Having a negative outlook on their or other people's age over whatever the reason might be. The Wheel of Fortune. Now, the Wheel of Fortune. There's a lot going on in this card, but it actually is very easy to describe. Excuse me. Gotta take a sip here of a little water here. Now, this card, on the one hand, upright, talks about luck, success, fortune, elevation, cycles, and risks. Sorry, temperamental. On the flip side, reversed, problems, bad timing, ill luck, one step forward but two step back, losses. Very simply put, the most simple way to look at this card, if you get it upright, then they're on an upswing of whatever the issue is. It's heading to somewhere good. If you get it reversed, they're headed to a downswing, and the luck's going to turn. It's going to the situation's going to go get worse. Things like that. At the most simplistic level, just literally like spinning a chance wheel. That's what it like. That's what it like. Is the chance wheel going to land on something good, or is it going to land on something negative? And it's a card about ebb and flow. You know, life is, there's some high points, and then it heads down to some low points, and that's really what the card's about. Now, you're going to see some words, again, depending on the the particular deck you're looking at. Sometimes they have these Latin words, rota and ator. Rota is Latin for wheel, so pretty pretty straightforward why that is. Ator, not 100%. There's some discrepancy exactly where it comes from, but some occultists believe it's related to the Egyptian goddess Hathor. Now, the creatures in the corner represent the fixed sign of the zodiac: Aquarius, Leo, Scorpio, and Taurus. Uh, the reason being fixed, you know, they're it kind of it is what it is kind of situation. They're where the wheel lands on something, that's what it is. It's not uh, it's not going to immediately change. There's no hidden meanings. Either the wheel lands on something good or it lands on something bad. It's pretty cut and dry. Um, Now, some of the other symbolism. Now, if you look at the artwork, most artwork, when you see the symbols on the wheel, there's spaces between them, and that there is a reason for that. That is actually symbolic. Um, that they're symbolizing the stability between the changes. So you got to if there is a lot of upheaval in a person's life, and you get this card, you're pretty safe to assume that between some of these big events happening, there are going to be periods where he or she will have a breather. Justice. Now, um, this is again based on we were talking about based on Libra. Justice is upright, talks about balance, triumph, victory, deserving side of the law, fairness, needing unbiased truth. Reversed, complications, bigotry, bias, excessive severity, legal matters, consequences. Um, if you look at this, there's not really a whole lot of emotion here, is there? And that is exactly the reason. Justice representing Libra, Libra being one of the most unemotional associations in astrology. And if you look at it, think about the Justice, Lady Justice statue. She's blindfolded, holding a sword and a pair of scales. Uh, not again, not symbolically. There's not really much. Not about emotion. She's not. She's blind. It's all about hearing the facts and then dispensing justice one way or the other. And that's what this card is about. You know, uh, this card is not about you know the best way to one of the best ways to think about it is the old Dragnet TV series where Joe Friday would go, "Just the facts, ma'am." The person he's interviewing would go off about how Harry's sleeping around with Sally and it had no bearing on his case, and he'd stop her and goes, "Just the facts, ma'am." That's exactly what this card of justice is all about. Um, Now, again, the card symbolically is not always talking about human justice, about cosmic, natural justice, karma, even. The card is about equilibrium, not equality. Justice is not, you know, you know, justice is firm and fair, and sometimes, but however, sometimes it can be justice can be severe. Doesn't necessarily the punishment doesn't always necessarily fit the crime. And and so to sum it up, basically, as I mentioned, this card is about looking at situations neutral and unbiased as possible. And if you do that, if you heed that, then things will probably go a lot smoother than and if you get this card about a person who's having a conflict or indecisive about something, you can almost guarantee that they need to take a step back, set the emotional aspects aside, and look at it from a purely intellectual standpoint. If you get this card about something like that, most likely they're letting their emotions cloud their judgment. The Hangman. Now this is a little bit of a misnomer and a very misunderstood card. Some on the surface it looks like a card of sacrifice. Person hanging, and while it can mean a card of sacrifice, it actually has a much higher meaning. Upright. The card means trials, inner wisdom, decision, um, limbo, sometimes sacrifice, but usually not. Reverse, selfishness, futility, tunnel vision, blindly following, inaction, standstill. Now this is a turning point in the major arcana. Now we're going from where we were mostly, earthly, physical issues and concerns, and with some spiritual. Now we're finding the flip side, and now we're going to get more into the esoteric and less into the physical. Um, if you look at him, you can see he's tied up, but he's not necessarily in pain. He looks like he's in a trance state, a meditative state, a spiritual state, and that's very important to notice. Um, his the position he's in um, is called the Pitra Infanti, which is an act of shaving. It was done. It was done in the Middle Ages, usually to nobility, uh, by religious personnel, to shame them for some grievous uh, acts against the church. Um, Ultimately, the card is about letting go and giving in. Realizing your limits, realizing you can't, um, realizing while it's sometimes okay to be the rebel and go against the flow. Sometimes you got to go with the flow, and also it can also mean sometimes letting go of your predefined conceptions and attitudes, and saying, you know what, I've been holding on to this viewpoint, this attitude, and everything else, all these other aspects are like poking me and prodding me to change my mind. Maybe it's time I do, and that kind of thing. Yeah, exactly, Lady Nix. It can certainly mean something like that. Lady Nix says, looking at things from a different viewpoint. So, absolutely. Um, Upright. I know it's about us ultimately coming to a crossroads, and that's where the excuse me, where the inner wisdom and decision and trials come from. You know, um, so the better way to look at it is not at the hangman himself, but imagine the hangman. You see this hangman upside down here, at these crossroads. And it's really the crossroads that are really the key aspect of the card, not necessarily the man hanging. Now, reversed, then we get into this, blindly following and inaction and futility and selfishness, other higher meanings of the card. But again, in the right, context-wise, can it mean the surface interpretation of sacrifice? It can, but usually not. Death, one of the most misunderstood cards in the entire tarot deck. Um, while yes, the card means death, it 98% of the time talks about figurative death, not literal death. Now, upright, the card talks about force, significant change, violence, sudden endings, lust, and addiction. Reversed, inertia, lethargy, hope destroyed, failure to change, decay. Now, you don't really see anything about some sort of physical issues there, and that's because again, the card didn't. Now, originally in the Middle Ages, when they started using tarot uh, for divination, the death card probably did actually mean more physical death than figurative death. Excuse me. But however, as time went on, and death became less and less of an issue. You didn't have the Black Plague anymore. You didn't have outbreaks of cholera and all these other issues. Um, you know, the meaning of the card took more of a figurative than a literal interpretation. Uh, it's ultimately a card about transformation, and if you keep that in the back of your mind when you're reading, it will make the card will make a tremendous amount of sense. Uh, you know, Now I will say, with the right, depending on the context of the question and other cards around it, can it mean literal death? Yes, it can, but that is a rare situation. Um, if it's surrounded by, say, the nine, the nine of swords, you know, the five of swords. I'm sorry, the five of cups, um, the tower. Something like that. Uh, you know, maybe the ten of swords. If it's surrounded by other cards like that, then certainly if you're talking about someone who's ill or something like that, then yeah, then you definitely could be talking about a physical death. But the vast majority of time, it is about what we're discussing here. Uh, Now let me just talk about a little bit of the symbolism. Uh, you see the horse in some artwork. The horse is trampling another person, potentially a knight in armor. Um, in this case, the knight is representing one's ego, and it's about the destruction of one's ego, realizing you're not as good as you thought you were. You're not as strong, internally as you thought you were. You realize that you made a bad, you really screwed up. So it's about the destruction of ego. The flag has a rose on it, and it's about it represents the male and female. Uh, I'm sorry, talking about life and death. Um, the rose talking about talk the rose symbolically is about life and death. Now the card usually can signify massive changes, just like when one door closes, as this card can talk about sudden endings, significant change. Uh, you know, that kind of thing. When one door's open, another one usually opens up. And but if you get a card like around the Tower, the Six of Swords, something like that, Ten of Swords, Wheel of Fortune, it talks about massive changing. Now, it can also talk about people who have some issues. For example, addiction. Um, also, it can also, if surrounded by other cards about health, can talk about someone who doesn't exercise enough. Lethargy or someone who has emotional, self-esteem issues. The hope destroyed aspect. So you also got to keep that into context as well. Temperance. Temperance. This is a pretty straightforward card. Um, it's a card about moderation, economy, management, balance, and creativity. On the flip side, reversed, the card means discord, competition, conflicting interests, lack of moderation, flux. It's related to the Lovers and Judgment card because remember I said remember that angel from the Lovers card. Well, here's that angel now here in the Temperance, and we're going to see this angel in the final stage, the final aspect in Judgment. You can, basically, the angel is in three phases. First, you got the Lovers card, which is the raw physical aspect of uh, you know life and a person and a person's being. The Lovers card is all about love and lust and passion and union and all that good stuff. And here, the Temperance, this is a card. This is actually a card about transition, in a way. And then we're going to see the Judgment, the final appearance of the angel in the Judgment. So it's like three steps. So you're going to see the 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 Lovers is as we talk about uh, as below. We have the Lovers, the physical world. Judgment is going to be the spiritual world, and here Temperance. This is the transition. Now the two cups that they use using water flowing from one to the other. Um, this is the link to the Lovers card. The two cups representing both the male and female from the Lovers card. And you also notice the angel has 1 foot in the water, meaning that it's living both in the spiritual and the physical world. Symbolically speaking, that is what that represents. Again, the card of being between both the Judgment card and the Lovers card, the spiritual world and the physical world. But ultimately, the card is about, but all this together, the card really is about simply balance, equilibrium, moderation. Um, and reversed, the opposite of. Um, and if you get this, if you in the right, again depending on context, but you get this card reversed, usually the person in question they're going too far in one extreme or another, and that's one of their biggest problems. And they need to reel it in, and they need to find some harmony and balance back into whatever the situation is, whether it's a relationship, or work, or money, what have you. If it's money, they're probably and you get some other cards about spending, then they're probably going too crazy with their money, and they need to reel it in. If it's about if this person's trying to find someone, and you get this card and say the Lover's reversed and uh, maybe the Devil reversed, then they're probably too concerned with their physical needs, and the reason they can't find someone is because they're all about you know getting the next person in bed rather than try to get an emotional bond with someone. So this card, it's pretty straightforward at that level. The Devil. Devil, uh, you know, we're kind of, the Temperance is kind of the turning point. Now we're going to start getting to some of the more egregious cards, some of the more negative cards before we, you know, get back to good. You got to go through. You got to go through. Got to go through difficulty before you can get to a good place. And this is what. So this is what we're going into some of the harsher cards now. Upright means ravage, violence, force, fatality, addiction, obsession, vices, lust, ambition. Usually misplaced ambition or not always in a negative context, but usually in a negative context. Either they're screwing people over for their ambition. It's misplaced ambition. Reversed, basically the same, as well as weakness, pettiness, ignorance, breaking promises, detachment. So the devil card basically, no matter what the context, upright or right, more or less um, has the same meanings for the most part. The word devil has Greek roots from diablos, meaning accuser or slanderer. So that should kind of help you understand, the meaning of the card of symbology. It is a card of extremes, as you can see by by the descriptions. There's not a whole lot of gray area. It's a pretty extreme card, and that's intentional. It's a very physical, materialistic card. Not a whole lot of spirituality issues, as you can see. This is all about, people with drinking problems, drug problems, sex addicts, or people who are just using people for sex. People who are in abusive relationships, you'll get this card a lot. People who are in being emotionally abused relationships. Um, People again who are being sexually abused. Um, People who are compulsive liars or can never keep their word or their promises. Um, People who are who give in to the worst part of their humanity, and that's really what this card is about. Now, as you can imagine, symbolically, the two people chained uh, to the entity. It's about bondage. People who have obsessions, vices, addictions. They're bonded to the worst parts of themselves. And as you can see here, these people are bonded to the devil entity. Um, that's what that symbol is about. It can also be a card about mental and emotional games, as I kind of hit upon a little bit, and giving and having the inner demons take over. Now I'll tell you, I had a young young teenage girl. She's about 16. She came for a reading for me, and I did a simple three-card reading. I got the Devil reversed, the Tower card, and I believe one of the I can't remember what, but it was a sword card, maybe the 6, 7 of swords, something like that. Immediately in my head, I could tell she was sexually abused, and I didn't say that outright to her, but I implied it. I just talked about you had a very traumatic experience. I believe that's the way I worded it. I said, I understand, I see about your fairly recent traumatic experience. You're trying to get away from it, blah, blah, blah. And, we talked about it. And she just sat there and, she listened and she thanked me. And a couple days later, I got an email. And she tells me She's like, thank you. It was so helpful. Yeah, I'm going to go get counseling and so on and so forth. 'Cause I believe I suggested she get some counseling and what have you. And at the very end of the email, she says, "So how did you know I was raped?" And so that's kind of the stuff you, when you get the devil card. That's that's the kind of the stuff you're dealing with. All right, Tower. If you thought the devil was bad, it might have been Nine of Swords, Gold Queen. I can't remember exactly which one, but it wasn't good. Wasn't good. Um, Upright, misery, distress, calamity, ruin, disgrace, depression, upheaval, liberation. Um, Reverse, pretty much the same, but not as bad. It can also mean imprisonment. For example, if this has to do with some legal issue, then most likely they may not necessarily be going to prison, but basically it means it probably isn't going to go in their favor. I'm scared. Don't be scared, temper. I mean, like I said, some cards are really good, and some cards, just like life, uh, you know, some things work out really well, and sometimes they don't, and that's okay. You can't. It isn't all about unicorns and rainbows. Tarot is a reflection of human archetypes and the human condition, and that means there's going to be some really good ones like, the lovers and the high priestess, um, you know, and temperance, and there's going to be some that aren't. Yeah, Gold Queen has a very good point. She goes, shit happens, and if you know it's going to happen, that can make it a little easier. Exactly, exactly. Now the tower. Now, if you're looking at it, looks pretty bad. Uh, Lightning hitting the top of the tower, crumbling in flames, people falling to their proverbial death. Um, it's not very good symbology. And as you can see, it's the meaning's pretty obvious. Now, symbolically, the lightning represents divine intervention, such as Zeus, or even perhaps walking down the street and all of a sudden you just get hit with some like almost life changing inspiration, and that's and that in that level that's what um, the lightning is representing. Now, again, while this is not a very bad card, context is everything. If you have a lot of very very positive cards and you get this card, if it's about if it's a reading about inspiration, about work or they're wondering how their idea is going to go, or or they're trying to get a new project off the ground in the right context. This card could potentially mean something like that. Like, if they keep working at it, they're going to get hit. They're going to get hit with some great, amazing inspiration. It's going to create a lot of upheaval, and they might have to start from scratch again. But from the ruins, you're going to be able to pull something pretty good out. While it can mean something like that, most of the time it's a pretty bad card. Let's just be honest. It's not the best card. The Devil card and the Tower card are probably the two worst cards potentially in the Tarot deck. Um, the Tower represents everything we have built, and as you see, the top crumbles first. And if you see, most symbolizes you see a crown falling from the top of the tower. Um, and that's that's talk. The crown representing power and authority, and losing our power and our authority, and our will. The tower is a phallic symbol, another phallic symbol that represents again ourself and our ego, the destruction of ourselves, destruction of our ego. The gold queen says destruction of a way of life. Very, very possible. Very possible. Now, following the devil, also, if the tower follows the devil, um, it can mean um, liberation. What happened with the devil? You've now, everything's in ruins, everything's in ashes, and now you can walk away. It was probably a very difficult situation. The situation proverbially burned to the ground, but now you're free of all those issues and that problem that was hounding you. Um, so yeah, the tower certainly isn't 100% negative. It can, like I described a couple examples, there are some ways where it can certainly mean, uh, you know, um, a fresh start. But to get to that fresh start, or to there's the old ways are going to burn to the ground. There's going to be some upheaval. There's going to be some ruin to get to that point first. Now, if you notice, there's 22 flames, and and if the cards are true to traditional tarot symbology, uh, they spell the Hebrew word Yod, which means seeds of wisdom and life. And again, it's being set free. To go back to previously what we're talking about. The star. Now, um, this card means hope and bright prospects, harmony, optimism, rebirth, healing, and luck. Reversed, arrogance, impotence, loss, disappointment, insecurities. This is kind of a dual card. It's a card of Aquarius, which is a sign of air. It's associated with the air element. However, Aquarius is the water bearer. So it has dual meanings between air and water. Now, the water in this card represents the waters of life and renewal. The 8 stars, eight meaning spiritual perfection. And also the star, here, and we could talk about the hermit. Remember, we talked about the star in the hermit's lantern. And here, the star is guiding us out of the darkness, where the hermit, he's guiding us in to get to the temple of the high priestess. And this card is also associated with, if you look at the numerology aspect, strength. 1 plus 7 equals 8, which is the card of strength. Now, most of the symbolism here will have a bird in the background at somewhere. And this is the Bennu, or the Egyptian phoenix. Getting back to what we were talking about a little bit of the tower, rising from the ashes, renewal. So this is a pretty positive card, upright. It's all about starting anew, and the waters, the waters of the card, springing new life and rebirth, and hopefulness, and really good things. Reversed, not certainly not the best. It could be anything from someone who has some emotional insecurity problems, or is overly arrogant and headed to a bad situation. Also, impotence, not necessarily sexual impotence, though again, context-wise, it could be, but someone who doesn't have the ability to get the job done, for example. Someone, um, something like that. Uh, so again, context, context. Uh, yeah. The car with water that usually means healing. If this was a question about sickness and you got the star card, I would generally say that they're heading toward being on the mend. There are other better cards. Yeah, reversed, mate. Certainly, possibly. Um, yeah. If it's a question about health and you get the star reversed, you know, I, I I would default with the stance that things aren't going to get significantly better anytime soon. I wouldn't say they're going to get significantly worse, but I'd be, yeah, I would be, I'd say that the health issue is going to remain for, moving forward for a bit. Um, I would be apprehensive about saying it's going to get worse, but I would say health wise it certainly isn't going to get any better. Lady Nix, because water. Lady Nix asked why we talk about illness with this card because of the water aspect of it. Lady Nix, water is traditionally symbolism of health and healing. All right, let's move on. We're almost done here, guys. The moon. Now, usually the moon, most people feel the moon is very positive, but in tarot, not always. It's kind of a hit and miss kind of card. But as you see, we're now moving away. We're getting to a bit more positiveness. Now we've really hit pretty the pinnacle of the worst aspects of the cards: the tower, the devil, and now we hit the bottom with those cards, and now we're working our way back up into positive territory. The moon represents hidden enemies, danger, occult forces, fear, illusion, primal nature, subconscious, reversed, instability, inconsistency, secrets, deception, distortion of truth, paranoia. Um, the moon in ancient times symbolized reflected light of truth. It wasn't. It wasn't. It, if you think about it, why does the moon shine? Because it reflects the sunlight. If the sun was the truth, the moon is a reflection of that truth. Now, what does that symbolically mean? It means that you're seeing. Imagine it's like trying to look underwater. If you go in a pool and you go underwater, you open your eyes and you look up to look out, above the water to people. What does it look like? You still see the people, but they're very distorted, and that's the kind of way you got to look at this card on that level. It's a truth, but it certainly could be distorted. It could not be the 100% accurate version of the facts and the truth. Um, the moon is also symbolically the moon is a gateway of manifestation and an obstacle of illumination. Again, getting back to that whole, it reflects the sun, and if the sun is a truth, it's kind of a warp. It can potentially be a warped version of it. You're not seeing the truth directly. You're seeing it indirectly, and because of that, you might not be getting the full story. Now, the moon also, as far back as recorded time, has been a symbolism of psychic and intuitive abilities and women's health. So kind of keep that in mind when you're doing your reading as well. Now you see the crab, or there's usually a crustacean crawling out of the water on the moon card. That is a symbol of the, the subconscious, or the subconscious, coming into light and con- uh, going into the conscious. In other words, becoming self-aware. Uh, so when you get this card, again, depending on the question, if it's a question about, I think, I don't think this person has the best interests in heart of me, that's usually, you get this card, that's pretty good indication. Yeah, this person doesn't have your best interest at heart. They have some hidden agenda, you know. Um, on the flip side, if you get this reversed about that same question, then the person asking the question might be overly paranoid about a situation or overly worried. They're psyching themselves out about a situation that doesn't really exist. It's also a card of, if someone says, I think my wife isn't telling me the truth about this or that, and you get that card, yeah, there is probably some secrets going on. Something that, they're not being 100% upfront about. It can also mean, if you get this card, that there are people out to sabotage a person. If it's, like for example, if it's a work reading and you get this card, it could be about, I would warn the person. I think there's some people that don't have your best interest at work that you're not aware of, so you need to be careful. So that's the kind of things that you got to kind of keep in mind when doing this reading. Profits. Can you do a reading if people don't come to you as yes, they are called general readings. Can you do that? Yes. Am I a fan of that, or do I prefer to do them? No. I prefer specific questions. General readings are tough because, one, the cards are going to talk about what they feel a person needs to talk about, and that might not be a topic the person is comfortable talking about or even wants to talk about. The the other issue is sometimes the cards talk about an issue, and it's a lot of, in a general reading, and if they don't specify a question, it's a lot of future tense, and so the person isn't going to be able to relate to it until you meet them like 6 months later. They go, "Oh yeah, you said this to me, and I had no idea. It didn't make any sense to me. But then this happened and that happened, and then I totally understand why the cards were talking about it." So yeah, so that's why I'm not a fan of general readings. I mean, there's some people who have absolutely no problem doing them, and hey, all the power to you. If you like doing general readings, great. I prefer to have a specific question. That way we can get into, we A, can hit a topic the person I know is interested in, and B, we can get into the nitty gritty. That's the moon card. The sun card. Once again, the sun card being the sun, being the fire sign, which is again the card that is associated with Prophets and I being a Leo, because we're awesome. The sun card, as you notice, Prophets, both the strength card and the sun card, that's pretty much all positive associations, because we're pretty fucking awesome. So, sun card, upright, material happiness, good marriage, fortunes, contentment, success, joy, awareness. Reversed, basically the same to a lesser degree. Um, Also, you got to be careful. You get this reversed, it could mean people around you that are jealous of your success or how brightly you're, figuratively shining. But basically, upright or reverse, the sun card more or less means the same thing. Also, if you get the sun card, look at it as the sun shining on the rest of the reading. Meaning, even the worst cards, they won't be as bad as they normally would be without the sun card. They will lessen any negative cards in the reading. Now if you look at the symbolism, let's talk about a little bit about the symbolism of the card. You're gonna see sunflowers. Now, what do sunflowers do in sunlight? They turn. They naturally turn to face the sun to get the most sun. Um, and if you think about this card and its meanings, that actually kind of makes sense. However, if there's a negative aspect to this card, it is a card, of truth and self-awareness, but you also got to be careful being a major arcana and being a major card. Sometimes the truth is sometimes a bitter pill, and not everyone's ready for the truth, and so you gotta keep that in mind as well. As I say here in this slide, sometimes the truth is more damaging than lies, and you got to kind of keep that into context. But that said, if it's about marriage or business or money, family issues, definitely a very, very good card. Gold Queen says, so press for a general question if the specific question is too tender to. I don't believe any question's too tender to touch. I will always tell my clients, if you don't want the truth, don't ask the question. If they, and that should be a philosophy any reader I train should take. If they say, hey, I want to know about my relationship, and you pull a card and you say, well, I got to tell you, I don't think he's a good fit. Here's why. And if I was a betting man, I'd say he's probably, his eyes are straying. That's, that's not on you. That's, they ask the question. You have an obligation. Going back to the whole ethics part I talked about, you have an obligation to tell them the truth. And not avoid it. You know, um, you know, at the beginning of your reading, you should. There's two things you should tell them at the beginning of every reading. One, you know, not every, not everything is written in stone. It's all about free will. And if you don't like where I say you're headed, future tense, then it's up to you to make changes to avoid that outcome. And two, if you don't want the answer, don't ask me the question. If you're not ready for if you're not ready for the truth, don't ask me the question. And if you state that at the beginning of every reading, those 2 points, which I stress you to do if you want to get into this, and they ask a question, then it's your obligation to tell them. You can, you can be tactful about it, but you still got to tell them. So, excuse me. Judgment. We're almost done. As now, you know, um, remember we talked about the angel that appeared? Well, here we go. Here's the final appearance of our angel friend. And, now we're totally really in the spiritual realm. As you can see, the symbolism here. Um, we can see the symbolism here. Looks like these people rising up out of their tombs. Here we have a man and a woman with a child between them. The angel above them with this horn. The judgment here, the card means results, renewal, change of position, a higher calling, get you in touch with your higher self. Reversed, indecision, delay, regrets, and weakness. And here, again, the card, this is the final, here's the couple that we met in the lovers. Now here they are in their final card in judgment. They've made that transition from, uh, the very beginning, and they made this physical and then spiritual journey all the way to the end. And here they are, moving on to their next life. Moving on to, they're moving on from the physical world to the spiritual world. Um, a child between them represents rebirth and renewal. The grave symbolizes them not being awakened or free, and they're leaving that those constrictions. And as the slide here says, the card is mostly a metaphorical card of rebirth and openings one's eyes figuratively, uh, becoming self-aware. Understanding your subconscious. Um, growing from that knowledge and that wisdom. In reverse, this card means the opposite. Not being in touch with your inner self. Regretting your decisions, procrastinating, being weak-willed and weak-minded, that kind of thing. And the final card, the world. Here we finally made it, guys. From we've gone from the fool. Remember we were saying how if you put the tarot all in order, it's from birth to death on a physical and spiritual journey. Well, we went from the birth, the fool, and now we're at the world, the heightened of enlightenment and positivity. And they've made this journey through all the ups and downs. Um, the world card means voyage or movement. Uh, Sometimes metaphorical, but also many times the world means physical movement, whether they're changing physical locations, going on an extended trip, something like that. Nature, peace, self realization, closure, triumph, victory. Reverse, stagnation, lack of closure, endings. Um, Now, the wreath in the card symbolizes not victor. Traditionally, a wreath symbolizes victory. For example, in ancient Greeks, when the Olympians would compete and win, they'd get a wreath on their head, and that's where the whole wreath thing came from, and how it symbolizes success and victory. However, in this context, the symbolism isn't about victory over others, but within ourselves. Again, knowing our inner self and understanding and coming to that deeper inner wisdom. And if you look, the wreath makes a zero, which brings us right back to the Fool. Because life and the universe is a cycle. And once it ends, a new beginning starts, and we start right back at the Fool again. Now, the four beasts in the corner, the four entities, some cards are more obvious than others with it, but they represent the four fixed zodiacs, the four elements: earth, air, fire, and water. And the world card you basically signifies in an upright position, major completion, and changes in the situation or the person's life. So that is all the major arcana. Now, this is the spread. Forgive how I know I threw this together really quick. Um, so forgive me, but you can get but you can see it. This is the spread I use. There are other spreads, and in my 102 class I will talk about that. But this spread is what I use, and I've used it very, very successfully for many, many, many years. So, I'm a big fan of KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Now, some people love the Celtic cross spread, which is a lot more complex than this. But quite honestly, the, the Celtic cross spread is good if you really need to get into the nitty gritty. Um, I find sim- most simple to intermediate level inquiries don't need the Celtic cross. It's just overkill. It's literally, it's just too much. And I find this spread works very well. Now you can see how I number them. That's how I lay the cards out. I start with the center, and then two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, and that's the order I do it. Now, the left row, the left column is past, center present, and the right is future. Um, Depending on the exact question and what column it's in. The bottom is the base issue, the base information, uh, the root cause of what's going on. The center is basically where they are in where they were or where they are in the situation, and then uh, the top is either more if it's in the past. It's like it's just more information about what transpired. If it's present or future, the best outcome and what they can expect on their current path. Gold Queen, will you include don't let any other dudes touch your cards, care and such? I'm not a big fan. I honestly, um, yeah, no, care for your cards. That's actually probably a good thing to talk about. Um, there's a couple different philosophies. Um, there's a couple different philosophies about that. I am of the I am of the opinion when it comes to other people touching your cards. I have no problem with it. No, I have absolutely zero problem with it. But, as long as you're respectful with them. If they want to, when I do my readings, I let them tell me what the question is. I think about it. I ask them their name and their astrological sign because that's important again to know the interaction with the cards from the astrological level. I think about it. I shuffle it. Then I hand it to them. I was like, so think about your question. Mix it up till it feels good to you. When you're ready, hand it back to me. And then they hand it back to me, and I do the spread. I have no problem with other people touching my cards. I don't think that's a big issue, and in fact, I think that's a good thing. I think if people put their own energy on your cards when you're doing a reading for them, it can only help. Now, some people say, well, then there's going to be their residual energy on your cards. I'm okay with that. That actually only helps. That will just the more energy I can collect on my cards from other people, to me that's fine because the way I look at it, again, looking at it from a what's the word I'm looking for? From a higher minded level, looking at it from a collective subconscious philosophy. All these people putting their energy on the cards is just going to help me draw from other people's experiences and subconscious knowledge, and that's the way I look at it. I've when you first get your deck, I would suggest you cleanse it, burn some incense. I would suggest a mixture of copal and frankincense. Hold it over the incense. Visualize energy going from you into the deck. Visualize any existing energies, leaving the deck as you putting your own energies into it. Um, and then, when you store your deck, put it in a nice. I have a nice dark red velvet bag. Um, but taking you take care of your cards will take care of you. Um, but but as for having other people touch them, as long as they're respectful, and you know, I again, I personally don't think that's a big problem. Prophet says, is it possible to do your own readings yourself? Is it possible? Yes. For very simple yes no kind of questions, I think it's okay. I think you can. When it gets complicated questions or in-depth information, I think it gets very, very tricky. Just like asking a therapist to analyze themselves and their own problems, I think you end up seeing what you want to see rather than what's really there. Lady, let's see. Yes, AMS says too much bias to do your own. I would think. Indeed, indeed, it's tough. You know, you really have to emotionally remove yourself from the situation, and that's very hard as human beings to do when we're talking about our own. Other people. I have no problem telling people, listen, your life sucks, and you got some issues to work on, and here's some, A, B, C, and D. These are the issues we need to address. I have no problem doing that with other people, especially people I don't even know. But doing that for yourself, that's a whole nother ball of wax. Exactly. AMS says it's hard to detach and look at things objectively with your desired outcome. Exactly. Prophet's death card. Okay, go fish. Draws another card. Exactly, Lady Nix. I'm not saying you can't do your own tarot reading. I'm just saying it's obviously much more difficult than being removed and, you know, looking on the outside in. If some just random person sits across from you wants a reading, you have no emotional investment one way or the other. So you can give a very clear headed, non biased reading. But when you're directly involved in the situation, that's very difficult. Is it impossible? No, you can. It's just very difficult, and a lot of people would have difficulty doing that. Oh no, death certainly death is actually a fairly relatively positive card. The worst cards, for the major arcana, you know, um, generally speaking, the tower, death, um, as a no matter the position, those are probably the two worst cards, and arguably one of the two worst cards in the whole deck. Um, I have done that. I have done readings AMS for friends and family. I Is it difficult? Yes. Um, you know, Impossible? No. But I constantly got to keep mentally separating myself emotionally from the situation and reading what I see rather than what I want. So, yeah. Yeah, Temperamental says, I've been dating the same girl for 5.5 years. She literally won't do readings for me. Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's also scary when you're directly involved. Uh, Space Muffin, what do you think the main reason someone would come to you for reading it? The four big questions any reader will get: love relationship, money work, health, family issues. 95 plus percent of all the questions I get can be fall into one of those four categories. Yeah, the Gold Queen has a fair point. Well, it could seriously affect you if she draws something negative that has ethical responsibility to tell you. Yeah, it puts a person in a quandary. Absolutely. Uh, Gold Queen. Looking at it ethically, exactly. Um, it puts it puts you in a kind of tight pickle. You really got to tell the person this, and about their family or whatever, whatever the problem is. And it's tough. It's tough. It's not easy when you're in that kind of situation. I have a friend who wants to come have me give a reading to her new boyfriend. Now, she's already asked me about this boyfriend, um, and I did a quick little phone reading for her. And uh, so it's kind of awkward that okay, I already kind of know what's going on with him. I know the situation. I know the problems, and it puts me in a bit of a I mean, I'll do it, but I'm not go, but I'm not gonna tell him what she wants me to tell her. I'm gonna say, yeah, you're an Aquarius, you're an emotional prick, and that's why she's not happy with you. I mean, I'm not say it like I won't word it exactly like that, obviously, but that's really the bottom line. Gold Queen. Oh, Bane, welcome, Bane. AMS. All right, guys. Well, I am next week. I am looking to put together a 102 class. That's going to be a 4-hour tarot class. Um, if you're so interested, uh, it is. We're going to cover. We're going to talk. Recover the major arcana. Bit more on the numerology and astrological aspects. Get a bit deeper into that, and also hit the minor arcana. So if you are interested in that, feel free to contact me at my website here. Let me pull that up. Gothic Wizard. Right there. And I'll post. Oops, sorry, wrong link. There we go. Just send me your name and information, and your name and email address, and say you want to sign up for the 102 class, and I will get you signed up. All major credit cards accepted, and can square you away. Yeah, yeah, space. I talk with a lot of people who have said to me, "Oh, I haven't done tarot and haven't got a reading in years." I had I had a event this past Valentine's Day. I was downtown here doing readings as an event for the Valentine's Day festivities uh, at a local cafe, and did really well. I did probably about 20 readings. It was crazy. It was like back to back reading. It came in waves, and at one point I was just non. I had a line of people, and yeah, and a lot of people were like, I haven't had a reading in years, you know. Well, you're very welcome, Lady Nix and AMS. I appreciate it. Um, I appreciate it, and like I said, if anyone's interested in taking the 102 class, just get in touch. Awesome, awesome. Certified, I know, right, Prof? Pretty soon, Prof. I'll be sending him out to do readings for me. He's gonna like know all this stuff. Space Muffins. My ex would give me readings, not to me, but I was pretty impressed. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a combination of it's a combination of intuitive, developing your intuitive ability, which we all have. It's just it comes more natural to some people than others, and you just gotta. It's like a proverbial muscle. You just gotta work it, and the more you work it, the better you get. Gold tips and tarot readings on the fly. That's funny. I know, I like that idea, profits. That's actually pretty good. I like the whole do you need to hold on to their lingerie while you do their reading. I should have thought of that. That's actually a pretty good idea. I'm picking up what you're putting down, Prof. Tweet me a picture of your bra and I'll tell you a future. Used things brings me closer. Oh, or even better yet, tweet me a picture of you in the bra, nothing but the bra, and that'll help me spiritually connect with you. Awesome, guys. Well, hey, thanks a lot. I'm glad. I hope everyone got something out of this. I really enjoyed. It took a little longer than I thought, but now I know how long doing this over online will take. Probably close to 2 hours and an hour and a half. But awesome. Profits. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Hope everyone got something out of this and had a good time. If anything, I hope it was informative. Thank you so much, everyone, for all the support. Um, and we will hopefully talk soon. Take care, my friends.